because I think we had a different opportunity today. Last week we had Moti talking about the geopolitical situation in Israel and the history. And now we have a little bit of a different view. So let me give you a little bit of background. About 3 months ago, I got an email from a friend in New Hampshire. And she said to me, I met this guy, he's an Israeli who has this mashugana idea that he's gonna go around the country in a camper and go to all 50 states to talk about Israel. She said, if you ever come across him, you should make sure you take care of him. So now it's 4 days ago, and Victor calls me and said, we have this great opportunity. There's this guy coming from Israel. You don't know anything about him, but of course I've been following him on his blog since October, so after the holidays. As he went from New Hampshire to Maine to Massachusetts, over to Chicago, down through Tennessee,
West Virginia.
And Lior Vaknin is here today, and I thought, maybe we would add him to the movie, but then the movie is really it's a goof movie, and it's very fun, and it's a musical, but it's about the issues that are involved with territory in Israel and Arab-Jewish relations. And having spent a couple of hours with Lior earlier this week, he talked about that that's not his thing. His thing isn't about the geopolitical. He said it's about the life in Israel and the technology in Israel and the things that Israel brings to the rest of the world and country, to their country, and to all of us that improves the world. So let me give you his little bio that I took off of his website. Lior is an Israeli serial entrepreneur. I don't know what a serial entrepreneur means. Does that mean you've done it multiple times?
Yeah.
He just keeps doing it. Either he has jobs and he loses them, or he's really good and he builds things and gets bored and goes on and builds another one, which is, I suspect, what he does. He's the founder and president of Israeli Startups NYC, obviously that's New York City, which is the largest active Israeli-American tech community in New York City, helping entrepreneurs, startups, investors, and local partners network and build collaborations. He's born and raised in Tel Aviv and served with the Special Forces and the Paratroopers Unit. And during Operation Cast Lead, he wrote a war diary that was later published as a feature story in the official publication of the IDF. After getting out of the service, and I'm sure, did you travel the world? As most Israelis do, he did. He started working in the Israeli high-tech industry where he became one of the leading marketing experts in the country. He advises to numerous businesses and startups on how to build online empires and uses his unique branding and marketing approach to do that. He works with top-level executives, both American companies, Israeli companies, trying to build bonds and trying to build that kind of energy that enhances the whole world and makes the world a little bit smaller. So I'm honored to introduce Lior Vaknin, who will tell you about his journey and what he's trying to do and try to give you a little bit of an image. So give him a warm Savannah welcome. You see what he wrote? He wrote really good marketing. He knows what he's doing.
Thank you, Adam. I really appreciate it. And your hospitality and the Chernoff's hospitality, which, as you all know, we Israelis not really good with planning ahead of time, and so everything is on the spot. Hey, I'm here. Let's do something. It usually doesn't happen the way that I. Let me take this. Doesn't happen the way that I want or think it will happen, but here it's much more than I expected. I thought that it will be a featured movie and we'll speak a little bit about it, and here I am getting to share a little bit about my story. So we'll have some time for questions, so even if you want to talk about the geopolitical or whatever question you may have, feel free to ask me at the end. And I want to share with you what makes or what made me an Israeli living in New York, having a company that connects Israeli-American technology startups, go on this crazy adventure, on this crazy journey to all 50 states, talking about Israel. And so the story of me coming, first of all, to New York was to build my second startup. And I got there late 2013. And what I saw really disturbed me. One was that even though there are a large number of Israeli entrepreneurs, there wasn't much of a community going on, and there wasn't much of a networking between the Israelis and the local entrepreneurs and investors, which I found really weird, because how do you connect with someone or with some companies when you're coming from another state? And the second thing is, when you're thinking of New York, you would think of people who are more aware of what's going on in the world. People are more involved in news. And when I spoke to the people outside of the technology industry, and I told them that Israel is very big on startups, they were in shock. They thought that Israel was a desert, and everything that's going on over there is just like a war zone, and it's just a conflict with the Palestinians. And so I came to New York to build my second startup, but I saw this thing, like these issues that disturbed me, and so I started creating this small community, which grew large, and it's called Israeli Startups NYC, as Adam mentioned earlier. And it became one of the leading platforms for networking, but also for people from all over the world to come and learn and understand more about what Israel is doing in the technology and startup and innovation world. And I think that this is the best way for us to promote Israel. And as all of you know, Israel is now in the news again, and we're getting scrutinized by the UN, and you see a lot of these anti-Israel and it's a lot of anti-Semitic that is disguised with the anti-Israel movement going on around the country. And as a marketing person, I saw what Israel was doing and how it was attacking this problem, and I thought it could be done better. Now, first I'll explain what are the two main philosophies that Israel and the Israeli policy is using in order to prevent the BDS, the boycott, divestment, and sanction movements, and all the anti-Israel movements. So one thing is basically saying we're right and they're wrong. So it's going into this endless debate of who's right and who's wrong, who owns the land, so on and so forth. And what I'm saying is, if you got to a point where you're even like having a discussion about it, or you're trying to persuade the other side that you're right and he's wrong, you already lost. There's no winners in this battle. And so if we're trying to do something that will help Israel, this would sure not be the case. And the second thing is trying to promote Israel by doing good at other places around the world. It's like, hey, look at how we helped the earthquake people or the victims in Mexico, or look how we send missions to Haiti, and so on. And the problem with that is that if the other person, if he perceives Israel as an occupier, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can even save the world, but you'll still be the bad guy. And so my philosophy and how I'm seeing things is, we as Jews, as people who support Israel, instead of focusing on these 15, maybe 20%, they're allowed 20% who are advocating against Israel, but they're not the majority of the people. Instead of focusing on them, and we'll waste our time, energy, and money, we should focus on people who don't know much about Israel and help them know. Now, how do you connect with people across the board? People are on the right, on the left, it doesn't matter what their affiliation is. How do you connect with them, and how do you bring Israel to those kind of people? And I believe that this would be done the best way in a personal touch, and if you're helping someone on a personal level. Now, how can you help someone on a personal level with regards to Israel? Is by showing what Israel is doing in the startup and innovation and technology world. And to give you just a couple of examples, if you want now to build a website, if you're a small-time business owner, or you just want to start your business and you need a website, there's a great service and a great website that's called Wix that does it for free. And so you can help your neighbor who is looking to build a website or a small store, and tell them, hey, there's this service that you can use. It's called Wix. It's free, and by the way, it's Israeli. So you're creating a personal experience for this person, and by that, this affects him way more than you will try to win an argument over politics. And there are multiple companies, because right now, Israel is the leading force in the startup and innovation across the board. So we're talking about security, cybersecurity companies, and artificial intelligence, and website building, and you name it, Israel is at the forefront. Two companies that I really love, and I think that you guys, especially because I know that the community here in Savannah, a lot of the Jews are generations over generations that are based here. One of them, it's called MyHeritage. Anyone heard about this company? Yeah? Okay, we have a representative. So MyHeritage is a company that allows you to do an ancestry check and see a little bit about your background and find relatives that you would otherwise wouldn't know even existed. Some of you your families came from Europe over 100 years ago, and you can find people that are living in New York, or people are living in Denver, or other parts of the country. And this platform allows you through some questionnaires, and if you want, you can also have a DNA sample sent to them, and they will find the matching relatives across the country. So that's an amazing company that's doing terrific. It's called MyHeritage. And the second company, it's in the health industry. It's called Zebra Medical. And this company, I'm thinking that this company would win like a Nobel Prize one day, because what they're doing is they're taking hundreds of thousands of MRI samples from patients all over, and it's confidential, but they're taking the samples from patients all over the country. And basically what they're doing, using an artificial intelligence, using a machine, a computer, they're analyzing it and finding patterns. And through these patterns, they can find fractures that sometimes a doctor might miss if he's just looking at the MRI or X-ray photo. And later on, where it takes it, it's finding cancer really early on, before any doctor would be able to diagnose, because even the best doctor would see maybe between 20 to 50 cases, and he'll try to see and find similar symptoms to what he's seeing in those pictures. But this computer analyzes hundreds of thousands, and so it allows them to really do a much better job. So these are really just examples. And so I decided to go on this journey, because I really believe that this is the way to do it, and leave New York, go on this 82 Winnebago camper, and go across the country and share with people, share with communities a little bit about what Israel is doing. Now, I'm sure some of you are interested in how you can learn and how you can find more about those Israeli startups and about those Israeli companies. So first of all, Google is our best friend. When I say our, it's my generation, and I hope for most of you guys it's your best friend as well, because all the resources are there. But to mention some of the websites and some of the information, one of them, it's called Mapped in Israel, MAPPED in Israel. And this is really a geo map that shows you the different type of startups, the different type of companies that are doing in all across the board, what Israeli companies, what Israeli startups are doing. The Times of Israel has a blog section that is focused on the startup tech. And there are much more that we can do. Now, if we want to help the Jewish people, if we want to support Israel, instead of going into arguing on political issues with our friends or with our neighbors, let's try to help them. Let's try to help improve their lives. And I believe that by doing this, we'll be able to have a much better success rate than anything else. So I want to thank you very much for your time, and I want to open it up for some questions from the audience. Yes?
I think that you missed one of the most important Israeli developments, Waves.
Yes, yes.
Probably 95% of the people in this room use it.
Yes. How many people here use Waze? Yes. How many people here knew that Waze was Israeli? Most of the people. But for those of you who don't know, Waze, the navigation app, is one of the most early success stories in the mobile app world. And Google bought them for over $1 billion, and now they're part of Google, and they're no longer a startup, but they're a huge success story, which for a lot of people have shown the way that Israeli companies can not only be sold for the 20, 30, $50 million, but can really grow and be a huge teams. And I think that what's interesting about the Waze story is that they insisted that their research and development center would stay in Ra'anana and would stay in Israel. And so that they have Israeli employees, and even though the headquarters moved to San Francisco, they still have they're employing a lot of people. And we see this with a lot of international companies who are using the Israeli brains in order to build their research and development centers. Yes?
Hello. What kind of companies do you work with? What is your startup?
So I had 2 startups of my own, and I work with a bunch of others. My first startup was a social phone book app, which basically allows you to see anyone who calls your phone, even if he's not on your contact list. And how we did this was by crowdsourcing. When you download the app, you upload your contact list to the crowd, and then you create a crowdsource crowdsource contact list. And I work mostly with consumer-facing companies. Israelis, and I'm generalizing, but Israelis are really good with technologies, but we don't put much emphasis on the front-facing, on the marketing, on the sales. We like the tachlis, as they say. We like, okay, the technology works, like it speaks for itself. As most of you know here, it doesn't, and you need a good package, and you need a good branding, and you need all of this. And so it's kind of a shifting of a mindset or of a perspective of how you should look at those issues. And those are really my expertise and where I'm trying to help companies.
Would it help with like telemarketers?
It's more telemarketers. I would say it's the previous generation. Now in the online generation, you get a lot of your inbound and on your marketing from SEO, which is the search engine optimization, from Google, from Facebook, from all those platforms. And you need to make sure that everyone who comes or visited your page, your website, your Facebook page, whatever it is, you make him want to join, you make him want to use the service. So those are some of the examples. Yes?
You work with APAC.
I don't work with any official agency. I took this mission on my own, and I have friends with APAC and JCCs, and I'm doing it as I believe, and I think that it has its pros and cons. But when you're joining a big organization, you're subjected to a lot of the politics and what you can discuss and what you can't discuss. And as an Israeli, and I have the chutzpah myself, so I'm not really into someone telling me what I can discuss and what I can't. So I choose to go for it on my own and use those beautiful and amazing organizations as facilities and as partners for me to reach out the audience as we're doing today. Yes?
Does the kibbutz Nezer Sereni still involve in manufacturing of different products, especially medical products?
Great question. I have no idea.
Okay, back in the 80s, they were involved with a piece of equipment that they had developed, manufactured, called the rhinotherm, which was a device to cure the common cold. And they then became involved with Baxter, here actually in Chicago. And I was just curious whatever happened to them, if they were still in manufacturing of medical equipment.
To be honest, I don't know, but I have one of the most interesting stories when we're thinking now, in the 21st century, when we're thinking about startups and innovation, we're thinking about things in computers, so on and so forth. But one of the first startups in Israel was in 1956. And it was done by water engineer named Simcha Blas. Anyone here heard of Simcha Blas? Yes? So basically, one day, a friend of Simcha called him and told him, hey, Simcha, I want you to come have a look at this tree because he's growing without any water. And Simcha was very hesitant as an engineer. He was like, this isn't possible. So he went and he checked the ground. And he saw that there's like a broken faucet over there and some water were leaking. And this is how the tree got its water. And did encourage him to create what later became one of the most successful companies in Israel, Netafim, which is the pioneer in water aggregation. And it's just an unbelievable invention. It's now a publicly traded company worth billions of dollars. And this is, when we're thinking about innovation, it's finding a problem, finding this issue, and finding this new innovative idea and way in order to attack it, in order to really make it work. So this is a beautiful story of Netafim. He joined Kibbutz Chatzerim, and together they partnered, and together they built the company Netafim, which is, again, it's a beautiful story of a collaboration, of a smart guy, smart idea, early invention in Israel, and there are a lot of stories like that across the kibbutzim and across the country in general. Yes?
In a sense, you're preaching to the choir here.
Right.
You're telling us things we don't know, but we're already pro-Israel.
Right.
Are you talking to any not-Jewish crowds?
That's a great question. First of all, I am preaching to the choir, and I'm doing it intentionally. And I tell you what, because like I said before, if I'll try to go, and in Montpelier, Vermont, they encouraged me to go into this debate, and it's one of the hardest places to speak about Israel in the country, to be honest. It's a very pro-Palestinian, pro-BDS place, and I was up for it. The other side chose not to, but the thing is that I would waste my time if I'm having a hostile audience. I would waste my time trying to prove my point or trying to send a message through. However, with a crowd that is supporting Israel, by you, instead of, and this is really the entire purpose of it, instead of just going through rallies and supporting for Israel and lifting a sign, which is great, it's good for our for our Zionistic feeling, and we're feeling connected. But if we're really trying to make an impact, if we're really trying to do something good, we need to do good to the other. And by you helping your neighbor with his small business, with finding relative, with whatever it is, using the Israeli technology, it would have far more impact, and it would have much more lasting experience from him of what Israel is about, rather than just trying to go on these debates. So that's why I'm trying to focus myself. And in New Hampshire, as I mentioned, It's a joint Jewish and Christian groups. I'm not discriminating any ethnic group or any religious, and I'm open to speak everywhere. But if you want to know, and I'm thinking a lot of people here and a lot of people across the country, when they're seeing the rise of anti-Israel and anti-Semitic, and they're wondering, what can I do? What can I do in my community that can help Israel? Okay, I'm sending money through Israel bonds or whatever it is, but I want to feel that I'm making an impact. So if you're helping your neighbor, if you're doing something good, and you're associating it with Israel, this is the best that I think Israel can ask. And I don't think that Hasbara, the public advocacy, can get much better than this. Yes?
Are you blogging your journey now?
I am. So my beautiful girlfriend is videotaping it, and it goes onto my Facebook, and I'm also writing guest blog posts for Times of Israel. And I would send through Adam, I would send a thank you email for all of you guys. If you want to follow my journey, if you want to contribute and donate to the journey, but I am video and writing about the journey across the country. Yes. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
My question is about, now that Mr. Trump has decided, we'll see if it happens, to have the embassy, American embassy in Jerusalem, because he wants to make it capital. How do you feel about it? How do Israelis feel about it?
Israelis are very proud in President Trump's decision. I think it goes across the board from the right to the left. It's the obvious. It's really stating the obvious. Jerusalem has been the capital of the Jewish people for over 2,000 years. And I watched the full speech. And what drives me sometimes crazy is when you see people who are jumping into conclusions and are saying things such as, oh, would ruin the peace process or stuff like that. Even though when President Trump was talking about the decision, he said this has nothing to do with the final borders of Jerusalem. This has nothing to do with a two-state solution if the parties choose to. So he was just really stating the obvious that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. That doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a solution for the Palestinians.
Sure.
Or anything else. So I think that the Israelis in general really happy with the decision.
I'm going to tell you how I feel.
Sure.
Now, people, if I am for it, or I'm pro, and I'll tell you why I'm for it. Because many people, Jewish, non-Jewish, they say, well, if Israel does it, there's going to be even worse. The Palestinians are going to attack, etc., etc. That's true. But it's not any different. They attack anyhow. Whether we have our capital in Jerusalem or not, they attack us. They kill us. They throw the things and these, what are they?
Kassamim?
The missiles. They throw the missiles. They decimate us. They do whatever they can. So what's the difference? They will continue. Maybe they will. And on the other hand, maybe that's going to be a beginning to peace, because Saudi Arabia, the one who financed many of them for so many years, they're changing their ways too. They are changing their politics. They're becoming friendlier to Israel. So, I am for it. I don't want casualties to happen, but it's going to happen anyway.
The media, I think that for a lot of us who are watching what's happening in Israel, it seems much worse. And the media is, most of the time, is trying to entice the climate and trying to make it as, they're going to be an intifada, where at the end of the day, people just want to have a good life. People just want to live. People don't want more riots on both sides. Of course that there will be the extremists, and of course that there will be the terrorists who will try to affect you. But people just trying to live their life. And I think that right now, a lot of the Palestinians are having more jobs and they don't have really good reason to go into the riots that started the Intifada in 2000. And so I hope that this decision and this acknowledgement would only encourage both sides into getting into a long-lasting peace agreement. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Any other questions? Yes.
Iran has established a position in Syria now, in Iraq. What is Israel thinking, or do you have any idea how do they control that?
I have really no idea what the intelligence are doing. I can tell you, as someone who served in the IDF and was in the special forces of the paratroopers, I can tell you that Israel is in good hands, and we have one of the best intelligence agencies in the world. So, of course, you need to be alerted, and you need to be aware of what's going on with your neighbors. That being said, Israel is in really good hands, both with the active duty and the reserve soldiers in Israel. So, yeah.
There is a move right now among high school seniors to not go into the army. They're pushing not volunteering. Although they're prescribed to go, they're fighting against it. Do you know anything about that? I was shocked.
This isn't something new. Not in Israel, not here. I think no one. Listen, if it was by choice, I don't think anyone would want to go to serve the army. I would much rather spend my 18 to 21 years, in college and partying, but it's a must. And so you would always have those, extreme groups, and yeah, they'll get some media coverage, but people in Israel, people are understanding that the army is something that we need to do. We're striving for peace, and I can tell you that across the board, people want peace. Some believe it less when all these attacks are happening, but I don't think that any Israeli is out there just want to go and fight. People just want to live in harmony, want to live in peace with its neighbors, and I hope there'll be a day, maybe when I'll have kids and I'll have to, when they'll get to the age of 18, that the military won't be mandatory anymore, and we won't need it anymore. But until then, yeah, we do, and people are going in the very high rates to the Israeli IDF. Yes.
Israel needs to advertise more. I learned about a lot of Israeli products by watching JBS, Jewish Broadcast Service, on television. For example, I learned about the cosmetics, Gigi, so forth, so on. They don't advertise enough.
This is
And
beautiful.
They should.
I absolutely agree with you, and like I said, this is part of my philosophy, is advocating and promoting the good. Go put more money into marketing, into branding, into those stuff, and less into debating on who's right and who's wrong. That's it, guys. I don't want to keep much more of your time. I want to thank you very much for coming and for being here. And I'll send you all a thank you email with my contact information. So if everyone have any questions, I'm here for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Vera, I'm going to totally check out Israeli cosmetics. That is so cool. Why